Pleasant greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Success Talks with Coach T. Mungate Season 2, proudly brought to you by Compelling Systems. This is a show designed to inspire and motivate you with real-life stories of those people that have made it in life, and also to equip and empower you with the different tools that one needs to achieve success. And I am your host, Coach Tendai Mungate. Ladies and gentlemen, with me on the show today is an amazing man. He is the Chief Executive Officer of BizSource Consultancy, and this is a company that focuses on creating value for business by identifying critical growth drivers and driving costs down through operational improvement. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome on the show Mr. Nziradzemhuka. Sir.
Thank you very much, Tendai. Glad to be here.
Amazing, and it's an honor having you on the show. Mr. C, to those that may not know who you are, maybe it's the first time they are seeing you, please just introduce yourself to our guests today.
Yes, so my name is, like you said, Nziradzemhuka. I'm a man with many hats. I'm a father. I'm married to Christine, yes. And I have two daughters, Charmaine and Zoe. Mm-hmm. So that's the foundation and basis of who Chester is. Mm-hmm. I also have a mother who is still alive. So that's the grandmother to Zoe and Charmaine. And I think some in other circles in the professional world, Mr. Nziradzemhuka, in social circles, Mr. C. Mm-hmm. I like to interact with the young and mentor quite a number of young people in various areas of life. Yeah.
All right. Mr. C, I'm sure your journey is quite broad, and I think you've been in the business world for 30 years now. Please take us through that journey, how it started, and maybe just a narration of how you have got to where you are now.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting life journey. I'm 50 years old now, turning 51 this year. I started working right out of high school. So I did my school out of going after hours at the Polytechnic, doing computer studies. So I'm a programmer. I was trained as a programmer, working at a building society here in Harare. And my life has been in banking. So, and worked for various institutions. My belief and motto, I think, has always been not to stay in one place until you get retired. So I loved to get into various organizations. Yeah, so I've worked for a number of institutions, banks, Standard Chartered Bank, NMB Bank, Bank ABC, which then took me into the region. So I was representing them more in the region and back here in Zim. Worked for Medbank briefly on an assignment, and then turned to consulting. So I'm a chartered banker by profession. So I'm with the Chartered Banker Institute of Scotland, and have an MBA from Bangor University in Wales. And yeah, that's been my journey really, is learning through all these years, different experiences, getting as many cutting-edge certifications that have actually helped me position my career and opportunities to serve in different forums and spheres and solve problems.
I mean, I think that's very inspiring, even to our viewers, even the young people that are tuned into this show, that, you know, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one simple step. And, you know, looking at where you are now, you're 51, and looking at the amazing things that you're talking about, working for NMB and the different banks, it's really amazing. Mr. C, I'm sure as you are going through this journey, you faced some challenges. Please talk to us about the challenges that you might have faced and how you have overcome some of those challenges.
No, great question. I think life is all full of challenges for almost all of us. I think it's about how you tune your mindset to addressing and tackling any challenge that faces you. I had the unfortunate loss of my father as soon as I finished my high school. So I had to fend for the family. So that's why I had to do school from correspondence and not go to university at the outset. And I had three other siblings who I then started guaranteeing their education so they go to university. So all of them went through university and I was their guarantor. So that's how that's how I tackled some of the challenges, is just to hold your head up high and deal with the situation as it is. And yeah, I think by God's grace, God always positions you and gives you the strength and the capacity from within to address whatever the challenge you face in life. And I think that's one big learning that I learned in life, is never look down on the capacity and the capability that's within you. We all face humongous challenges. Some lose parents before they are, just as soon as they are born. So they never get to experience their parents. But that does not mean your life has ended. You just need to face that challenge, find whatever opportunity that you get, seize it with both hands. So when you face a challenge is an opportunity to grow.
That's true.
and to learn something new. So when you face a challenge, it's your opportunity to shine and solve that problem.
I think it actually reminded me of a saying that says that the current the reward that you get for solving the current problem you're facing is the next problem. So thank you for sharing that with us. Viewers, we are going to take a short break. Please do keep liking, sharing, and commenting on this particular broadcast. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and this is Success Talks with Coach Tim Ngate, Season 2, proudly brought to you by Compulink Systems. And this is one of our episodes, and in studio we have Mr. Nziradzemhuka. And before the break, Mr. C, you were talking about your journey, some of the challenges that you faced. Moving on, I think one of the key things that I have seen and identified, having talked to a few successful people, and even on this show, is that principles are what make a man. What would be the 5 principles you would say have shaped you and molded you into the person that you are today?
No, great question. I think that it's super important for all of us in life to be built on some principles. I think the Christian values and principles molded me a lot at an early age. And for me, that's a number one principle that has helped me walk a straight road. Have moral values, being ethical. I think ethics have kept me away from jail. I have lots of my programmer friends who got locked up. In the financial service industry, you can be tempted, So being ethical and again, just being consistent. So consistency is key. And also embracing leadership is a good principle, is very, very important. All
right. Thank you for sharing those amazing principles with us. Moving on, you are also a business consultant, and I think our viewers, some of them that are watching, are entrepreneurs. Please talk to us about, and I think one of your jobs is helping business come up with business models. Talk to us about the importance of developing a business model looking at even our environment back home here in Zimbabwe, what is the importance of that for an ordinary entrepreneur who wants to start a business or is in business and they don't have such a thing?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a fundamental core even before you decide to launch anything out there, is writing down the 9 key principles of what we call a business model. Do you know your customers? Who are you going to service? How are you going to deliver your product to them? How are you going to maintain your relationships with this customer? That's almost the third point. And the core is, do you have a value proposition? So if you do not have value, you as an individual, you cannot attach a value on yourself. What are people going to buy from you as an individual, your personal brand? And then the product that you are packaging, what value is it carrying? Why is it important for me to engage you, Tendai, as an entrepreneur? So one has to really spend time on that portion to say, what value am I creating for the customer? Because at the end of the day, it's about the customer. That's the front stage of your business model. Those are core things. The other thing, obviously, is the revenue. So what value in amount, in dollar terms, how much are you going to sell that value to the customer? And are they going to accept it? So you need to generate revenue, because that's why you are in business. If you are an NGO, then that's something else. You are not creating revenue, but you are getting inflow of funds to use. Then there is the backstage of your business. What are the key activities that will help you package this and get it to the customer? So these are your back office operations. You need to have documented stuff. Do you have, what are the key resources that will generate the product to deliver to the customer? Who are you going to partner with? Who are your key partners that you leverage on to supply whatever you value you are giving to your client? And you need to understand your costs from the back side of things. And your revenue versus your costs, that's how you determine if your business model makes sense. You need to calculate the inflows and the costs of delivering this value. If there isn't enough opportunity there, we call it opportunity sizing, then you need to drop that idea right there and there. Don't try and get to market with it, because it won't work. Yeah, your revenues need to outweigh the costs. Yeah. Or you need to go and tweak something. Maybe you are giving too much value to the customer. Maybe reduce it a bit, which reduces your costs. So business models are fundamental before you get out there to sell anything. Understand those 9 building blocks. Yes.
Amazing. You know what? As you were talking about this, I was actually thinking, I think we need an episode where we just talk about business models, because I think it's essential knowledge to the modern entrepreneur out there. And I'm sure, looking at even some entrepreneurs here in Zimbabwe, some might not even know what a business model is, because for entrepreneurs like my age, it's just, I want to get in there, I want to make money. They are not talking about these fundamental things that are important in building a business. So thank you for sharing that. I'm sure it is inspired someone out there. Right, moving on, Mr. C. On this show, we promote personal development. We believe in reading in whatever way that one can. And I'm sure you are a reader yourself. Yeah, please take us through some of maybe 3 books that you would recommend our viewers to tune in to read.
Right, that's actually a very great, valuable question. So in any business that you are in, and you as a person, you want to be an expert and known to be good at something. And my first recommendation, obviously, is knowing that point. Once you know that point, you identify with books, whether it's to do with leadership. If you want to get into politics, read a lot about and become the expert in leadership and politics. If you want to be the expert in business strategy, read a lot about business strategy. Always have about 3 books that you read through in a year. that make you the best strategist or the best entrepreneur, whether it's social entrepreneurship, whether it's in commercial entrepreneurship or large corporate scale entrepreneurship. On that side of building you as a person, identify what you specialize in and continue to read along those lines. The other books obviously are just to broaden your horizon and your mind. For me, my focus is on innovation. I have loads and loads of books that I buy that are on my Kindle. My latest book, 2 books that I am reading is How to Become the Best CEO. And the other latest one is the 101 lessons of consulting. How do you become the best consultant out there? And know how to position yourself. The third book is more on a general side of things, is about what's my personal value. So that's one book that I'm reading. It's about ensuring me as a person, what's the personal value that I'm creating. So that if someone asks me, can you advise me? I'll tell them, yes, I'm happy to advise you. This is my invoice. And I charge $500 a day for that advice.
Yeah.
And it should be unquestionable. Someone is happy to pay. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing your books with that and for sharing that insight. It also takes me back to another insight that I got recently, where it was saying that, I think it was Dr. John C. Maxwell, he was saying that for one to become an expert in a certain field, they have to at least read they need to spend 1 hour a day reading on that particular field in a space of 5 years. And they'll be recommended an expert in that field if they consistently do that. So thank you very much for sharing that. For one to become an expert, you need to read in that field. I think before we end the show, Mr. C, it would be important that you talk about, I'm looking at the environment that we are in COVID-19. Businesses were caught unaware, and I think one thing you need to touch on, just to give knowledge to the entrepreneurs watching, what is the importance of embracing change and preparing for change? Because I think businesses were really caught unaware with this COVID-19 situation. How can one prepare for change? How can one adapt? Yes.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest areas of preparation is always keep a good storehouse. In the olden days, they knew if the rains don't come, what do you have in your dura? So most businesses went down because they didn't have a cash. They didn't have a dura behind them. So when now it was required that you need to purchase internet bundles, the money was not there to buy internet bundles. The money was not there to pay the employees or the brains behind your systems. Because now you couldn't trade in the normal way. So where you were doing physical, now you couldn't negotiate even with your teams that I'll chop your salaries in half. You had no salaries to pay. So I think that's one big lesson that most businesses need to carry consistently, is always keep a store of funds in the case of emergency. Again, I think now that we have gone through this pandemic, rather than remain scared, this is the time to invest in a slimmer operation, but more efficient. So rather than keep holding on to certain amounts of money, it's best to invest now for growth. Because I think recently Norway is going to open full scale. They have now downgraded COVID. So if you are not a business that is invested into the next era, you will now be stuck because you don't have the tools. You didn't invest now practically to engage in this new way of doing things. So it's super, super important to keep a store, but in times of hardship, it's then time to invest in the right tools and make your operation even slimmer but more efficient and get the money.
All right. Thank you very much. It's said have a store. I think from that's the biggest thing that we can get, have a store, right? And I'm sure our entrepreneurs and everyone who desires to be in business is learning from this. Mr. C, we are now ending the show. What would be your last words of motivation to our viewers who are tuned in today?
Yeah, I think the quick takeaway I think from this discussion is, as an entrepreneur, you mentioned the word from John Maxwell. It's one of his growth principles that he teaches deeply. It's called consistency. So as a takeaway, I think I would implore the viewers, the entrepreneurs, just to go and dig on that principle of growth on consistency. You must remain consistent in business. Don't deviate, don't do 20 things. When your core is a certain area, focus on it, be consistent at it, and people will recognize you. Awards will come your way because you have remained consistent on that line. So that's the parting shot is, let's embrace growth by being consistent in what you are doing.
Wow. Thank you very much. Be consistent. Yeah, that's a powerful one. And thank you, Mr. C, for agreeing to do this conversation with us and for sharing your story, your insights with us. We appreciate it as Success Talks. Ladies and gentlemen, this marks the end of our show. This Success Talks with Coach Mngate Season 2, proudly brought to you by CompuLink Systems. And we thank our sponsors, CompuLink Systems, for bringing this show into your homes. Please do subscribe to this channel. Dreams TV, and do follow us, Success Talks with Coach Mngate, on all social media platforms, and do follow CompuLink Systems as well on all social media platforms. From me, Tendai Mngate, the host of the show, and our guest, Mr. C, and the team behind the scenes, and our sponsor as well. Goodbye, and let's meet in the next episode.